Namaste yogis, and welcome back to Shanti Yoga Practice. Well, it's the start of a year, and for many of you that means a renewed commitment or newly found interest in yoga. A lot of the yoga that's out there is what we call Vinyasa style yoga, or it's linked with the breath, it's linked within the sequence. Part of that linking is a series of poses known as the sun salutation, Surya Namaskar, or often is just referred to as Vinyasa. So when we look at the Vinyasa sequence, we're really seeing that it's a linking together of these four essential poses: Tadasana, mountain pose, Uttanasana, forward fold, Chaturanga, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. So for today, our focus is going to be on a pose, Chaturanga Dhandasana. And Chaturanga, the word, is essentially many words combined into one. Chaturanga is the Sanskrit word for four, right? Anga is limb, Danda is staff, and of course asana is pose. So Chaturanga is four-limb staff pose. Now, this is a beautiful and dynamic pose, but as often as it's led is equally as often as it's not taught. So today, we're really going to pay attention to what it means to be in this powerful and dynamic, beautiful pose and sequence in a safe and congruent way. So when we look at the pose, we can see that the pose is essentially four limbs, two arms, two legs, and then staff, which means my body, which is super stable. So I have a lifting sideways, lifting legs, and a strong core. And as I shift forward, I bend my elbows to 90 degrees. And you can see that the congruency of staff remains. Four-limb staff pose. I inhale up to upward facing dog, and then the exhale down to downward facing dog. We can do that again, shifting forward, plank pose. Shifting forward again, strong core legs, chaturanga. Upward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana is downward facing dog. So if we look at the intelligence of this pose, what we often see is that as people start to explore it for the first time, what they have is sort of weak legs, which creates a weak core, and that when they go to come down, they sort of flop down. So one of the first keys to this pose is really stability in the legs and the pelvis. Lifting the legs up will start to create a height and engagement of the core. So if we come to plank again, and maybe just take it out of congruency, first lift the belly. You'll feel how much more challenging that is, and then lift the legs. Now lengthen the tailbone to really get into the core. Again, shift forward, 90 degrees in the elbows. You can see the sort of staff, four limbs, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. Very good. So just working with those components can create a lot of power and strength to sustain the vinyasas over time. But for today, I want to talk about the shoulders. Four-limb staff pose, the position, the alignment, is really where the elbows are at 90 degrees. And I'll turn sideways so you can see. The elbows are at 90 degrees. Now the anatomy of the shoulder is interesting, and this is why this alignment is so important. When we look at the shoulder, which is the most mobile joint in the body, we see that the humeral head sits into the shoulder joint at the back. This is where only 1/3 of the arm bone, the humeral head, is covered by its socket. It's a ball and socket joint. So in other words, only 1/3 of the ball and socket joint of the shoulder has a bony connection at the back. The rest, the other 2/3 of the shoulder joint, is really just held in by soft tissue. Soft tissue being inherently less stable than obviously bony connection and more prone to injury, right? So if we take that intelligence into this work, what we can see then is that when I bend my elbows to 90 degrees, I have more access to move the arm bone back into the shoulder head. If I move my elbow past 90 degrees, what tends to happen is that the force of the work goes into the top of the shoulder head. So let's explore that together. If I come again, I'm going to step back, and for this one I'm actually going to invite you to bring the knees down. As you shift forward into what would be like a plank, you lift the belly. And you can just see, if I take my elbows to 90 degrees, I'm able to lift the shoulder heads. But if I drop them down, how the shoulder head juts forward. And then inhaling up, and we'll just come back to sit again. So just picture this in Vinyasa practice, which can be very dynamic, very breath-based, and a lot of movement. What's also inherent about it is repetition. Every time the arm bone pushes down, it pushes in to the soft tissue of the shoulder. And over time, this can actually create repetitive stress because it's repetitive. The force of the bone is stress, repetitive stress injury at the bursa and also at the tendon. It also creates, in my experience, in a limitation of practice progression, because we're never really strengthening the side body and learning how to keep the shoulders onto the back plane. So if we were to explore this together, we'll take the hands down. We'll lean forward, lifting the belly to the heart. The legs are down. I'm going to shift forward, come to 90 degrees, uncurl the toes. And now lift the belly, lift the shoulder heads up. You feel the sternum expand. Slide the shoulder blades down, and on your next breath, straighten the arms, lift the legs. Good. And downward facing dog. No doubt this requires strength. So I'm going to offer here a couple of drills to really start to develop the strength for Chaturanga. What we'll need for today, we'll use our first block, and I'm going to come to the side so you can see. This is a drill to build strength in the shoulders and the arms, but also to place the shoulder blades in the correct position so the arm bones can stay lifted into the back plane and we can begin to access the side body. When you're ready, bring the hands to the block, bend the elbows in towards the ribs, just like you would do to Chaturanga. And then as you're ready, inhale, lift the block to shoulder height. And you can see my elbows are shoulders distance apart. And in a very real way, if I were to turn my palm, this would be Chaturanga arm. We're going to hold this, keep drawing the elbows towards each other. Drop the sternum towards the pelvis. Roll the inner thighs down. Take a deep breath. And extend the arms. We're just going to hold the block here. And then just bend the elbows and notice what direction they're pointing. Let them wrap underneath. So really hugging into the midline and then extend through the index finger. You may be feeling quite a bit of work here. And then take a deep breath. And as you're ready, inhale, we're going to just slowly begin to lift the block. And if you don't have a block, that's fine. You get a lot of this work simply by just holding the arms in this position. Keep lengthening the arms, keep lifting the back ribs. And then if you can, bend the elbows back, that same 90 degrees. Just feel the work, keep hugging elbows in, wrapping triceps forward, and lifting the back ribs up. Make the neck long. So lengthen the shoulder blades down the back. And then take a breath, inhaling. Ooh, it's a lot of work. And then slowly down. Just push the hands together with the block. Breathe, broaden the collarbones. Bend the elbows. And exhale, release. You might feel your shoulders is really warm, I know I do. And the side waist. Now we're going to take both our blocks. And I'd like you to place them right here at the top of your mat. And as we come to step back, we're going to bring the hands back. And this is really to make room for the shift forward that needs to occur to get the elbows into 90 degrees. And then lifting the legs. You want the thumb about center with the block and the fingers towards the outside. Draw the belly to the heart, and when you're ready, shift forward. And as you exhale, place the shoulder heads on the block. And then keep lengthening tailbone down. Keep lifting shoulder heads into the back plane, and draw the front ribs towards the back body. Even though the blocks are here to support you, you're feeling the push through the inner hand, elbows in. Take one more breath, uncurl the toes and push up. Exhale, downward facing dog. Good. Beautiful. If you're just beginning your vinyasa practice, you could work this 3, 4, 5 times just to get really a sense of the whole body and start to build strength so that when you go into a classroom environment, you'll really have the kinetic intelligence to find that 90 degrees, shoulder lifting, shoulder blades down, spacious strength. So we're going to do another drill. We'll go a little deeper with this. And then this time, I'll invite you to grab your strap. Now the strap wants to be shoulders distance apart. So if I put my 2 thumbs in and I pull apart and bend my elbows 90 degrees, the thumb will come right to the center of the shoulder head. This one's a little tight. I'm going to make it a little longer. And then the strap is going to go right above my elbows. And this time I'm going to come from downward facing dog. So I'll lift the hips up and back. And this is a beautiful way to start to learn down dog. Feeling the triceps wrap back. Again, take a breath, and as you shift forward, plank, look forward, and now the strap is going to stop you from going past 90 degrees. Lengthen the tailbone to the heels, hug the outer ankles in. When you're ready, uncurl the toes, press, exhale, downward facing dog. Again, you can practice an entire practice with the strap on the arms. And for our final drill, we're going to take both ends. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the strength of the pose, the work of the pose is in the legs, and that's really not to be minimized. If the legs are strong, it'll translate up through the core and the torso, and you'll be more likely to keep the shoulder heads open. So we're going to use both the strap and the blocks. And you can see I have my blocks at the top third of my mat. The strap goes right above the elbows. And then I'm going to step back into my down dog. I have my blocks on its highest height. And as I shift forward into my plank, sliding the shoulder blades down away from the ears, lengthening tailbone to heels, I'll shift again, Chaturanga. And you can see that the blocks are supporting my legs at the height of my elbows, at the height of my shoulders. This much lift in the thigh bones. Lengthening tailbone to heels. You'll take a breath. And then inhaling, upward facing dog. And exhaling, downward facing dog. So I hope these drills really help to empower your practice, that you could feel confident and really clear when going into class, whether practicing for the first time or after many, many years, that this practice be powerful, be dynamic for you, and also safe and healing. Let's put this last one together through a full Vinyasa sequence, and I hope this always finds you well. Start standing. Inhale, arms raised. Exhale and fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, stepping back, Chaturanga Dhandasana. Upward facing dog, inhale. Downward facing dog, exhale. Sinking heels, rolling inner thighs back, lifting belly, make neck long. Take one more breath. Bend the knees, look forward. Step it up and fold in. Inhale all the way to rise, and hands to the heart, exhale. And again, inhale. And exhale. Inhale, stepper floated back. Inhaling up dog. Exhaling down dog. Typically 5 breaths here. Bend the knees, look forward to the top. Fold in. All the way to rise. Namaste.